My own son stood up at Thanksgiving and spat. "Mom, you're no longer family." My heart shattered into a million pieces, but I forced a bitter laugh and slammed an envelope on the table. "Open it," I snarled. "Your lies are over." When they saw what was inside, their world burned to ash. If this rages you, smash subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I'm Eleanor Thompson, but my grandkids call me Nana. At 70 years old, I never dreamed I'd be sitting in a cramped 800-square-foot apartment in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, spilling my heart out about the worst betrayal of my life. But here I am, 4 weeks after a Thanksgiving that tore my family apart. Trust me, this story will hit you hard. It all started 6 months ago, when my world crumbled. My husband, Robert, was my rock for 47 years. We'd built a life in our cozy 5-bedroom home in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois, filled with memories of Sunday barbecues and holiday laughter. Then, one spring afternoon, Robert collapsed in the garage, his hands still greasy from tinkering with his beloved 1965 Mustang. A stroke stole him away in minutes. I can still smell the oil and hear the silence that followed. "Nana, you'll be okay," my granddaughter Sophia said, hugging me at the funeral. My son James and his wife Laura seemed so supportive, organizing everything, making sure I ate. But their kindness had a shadow I didn't see then. "Mom, you can't stay in that big house alone," James told me a week later, sitting at my oak dining table. "It's 3,000 square feet, Mom. Too much for you now." Laura nodded, her voice soft but firm. "There's a great senior community in Milwaukee, just 80 miles away. Safe, cozy, perfect for you." I didn't want to leave my home, where Robert and I danced to Sinatra on our anniversary. But they convinced me it was for the best. So I sold my house, packed my quilts, and moved to a gray, soulless apartment. Little did I know, their concern wasn't love. It was a setup for something far darker. Losing Robert was like losing half my soul. For 47 years, we'd built a life in our 3,000-square-foot home in the suburbs of Chicago, Illinois. That house wasn't just brick and mortar. It was where we raised James and Anna, where Robert grilled burgers on the 4th of July, where we'd sit on the porch swing watching fireflies on summer nights. Every corner held a memory: his old radio in the living room, the oak table where we carved pumpkins with the kids. But on that April afternoon, 6 months ago, everything stopped. Robert was in the garage, his hands deep in the engine of his 1965 Mustang, his pride and joy. I heard a thud, ran out, and found him on the concrete floor, his tools scattered like broken promises. The doctor said it was a stroke, quick and merciless. At 71, he was gone, and I was left staring at that Mustang, its chrome glinting under the fluorescent light, mocking me with its silence. The funeral was a blur. James and his wife, Laura, stepped in like the perfect son and daughter-in-law. They arranged the service at our local church, handled the obituary, even hosted relatives at their sprawling 4,000-square-foot colonial in Madison, Wisconsin, 80 miles north. "Don't worry, Mom," James said, squeezing my hand at the reception. "We've got you." Laura brought me plates of food I couldn't taste, her smile warm but calculated. "You're not alone, Eleanor," she said. Sophia, my 7-year-old granddaughter, clung to me, her eyes red. "Nana, I miss Grandpa already," she whispered. For a moment, I felt like I still had a family to lean on. But that moment didn't last. A week later, James and Laura sat me down at my kitchen table, the same one where Robert and I had shared coffee every morning. "Mom, this house is too big for you now," James said, his voice gentle but firm. 5 bedrooms, a half-acre yard, all that upkeep. Dad took care of everything, didn't he? He wasn't wrong. Robert had mowed the lawn, fixed leaky faucets, painted the shutters every spring. I wasn't helpless, but grief had hollowed me out. Laura chimed in, her tone syrupy. "We found a senior community in Milwaukee, just a short drive from us. It's got a pool, book clubs, people your age. You'd love it. I looked around my kitchen, at the blue tile backsplash we'd picked out together, the fridge covered in Sophia's old drawings. This was my home. My life. I'm not ready to leave, I said, my voice cracking. Eleanor, it's not safe, Laura pressed. What if you fall? What if something breaks? They wore me down, their words wrapping around me like a noose disguised as love. So? I sold the house, the place where James had learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where Anna had hosted her high school graduation party, where Robert and I had danced to Sinatra on our 40th anniversary. It was gone. I got a good price, $450,000 after the mortgage was cleared, but it felt like selling my heart. I moved to a 800-square-foot apartment in Milwaukee, a sterile box with gray walls, gray carpet, gray everything. My quilts, Robert's old radio, the dining set where we'd hosted countless Thanksgivings. They didn't belong in this beige prison. It's temporary, Mom, James assured me as he helped me unpack. You'll make it your own. Laura nodded, arranging my mismatched furniture in spaces too small to hold them. You'll love it once you settle in, she said, but her eyes darted away. The first weeks were brutal. I'd wake up reaching for Robert, only to find an empty bed and the hum of a cheap air conditioner. The senior community wasn't awful bingo on Tuesdays, a fitness room with outdated treadmills, but it wasn't home. I joined a book club, tried water aerobics, even forced myself to smile at mixers where lonely widows swapped stories over stale cookies. But every night, I'd sit in my tiny living room, staring at a photo of Robert and me at Lake Michigan, our arms around each other, laughing. What am I doing here, Robert? I'd whisper. I was trying to rebuild, to find a silver lining. But I didn't know the real storm was coming. James and Laura were about to show me just how far they'd go to exploit my grief. I thought moving to that gray, soulless apartment in Milwaukee was the lowest point of my life after losing Robert. But I was wrong. The real betrayal started creeping in like a thief in the night, dressed in the voices of my own son and his wife. James and Laura, who'd seemed so caring after Robert's funeral, began to show their true colors, and it wasn't long before I realized their concern was just a mask for something far uglier. It started innocently enough, about a month after I'd settled into my 800-square-foot cage. James called me on a quiet Tuesday evening, his voice tight with worry. Mom, I hate to ask, but we're in a bind. Laura's freelance design gig lost a major client, and our mortgage payment is due tomorrow. Can you help us out? Just $4,000. We'll pay you back next month. I was sitting in my tiny living room, staring at Robert's old radio, now silent on a shelf that didn't fit. My heart ached for James. Family helps family, right? I had Robert's life insurance payout, $200,000, plus $450,000 from selling our Chicago home, sitting in a savings account. What was $4,000 to keep my son's family afloat? Of course, honey, I said. I'll transfer it tonight. The bank app was quick. Too quick, and the money was gone in seconds. That repayment never came. Instead, the requests kept coming, each one a little bolder, a little more urgent. A week later, Laura called. Eleanor, Sophia's school trip to D.C. is $1,200, and we're short. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance for her. Then James again, 2 weeks later. Mom, the car broke down $3,500 for repairs. We can't get by without it. I sent the money every time, believing their stories, picturing Sophia missing out or James stranded. By August, I'd given them $15,000. By October, it was $42,000 mortgage payments. Sophia's SAT prep course, even $5,000 for a family vacation to Florida. They swore was already booked before their financial hiccup. I didn't mind too much. What was I saving for? Cruises for one? Fancy dinners in my beige kitchenette? I wanted my grandkids to have a good life, even if mine felt like it was fading. Then came the moment that cracked my world open. It was late October, and Sophia had come over to show me her homecoming dress on my iPad. She left it logged into her Instagram, and when I went to close the app, I saw a photo of James and Laura at a beachfront resort in Miami, clinking champagne glasses under palm trees. The caption read, "Living our best life. Blessed number, Florida vibes." My coffee went cold as I scrolled. There they were, dining at a restaurant, where entrees cost $80 a plate. James posing next to a shiny new jet ski. Laura in a designer dress I knew cost more than my monthly rent. All posted the same week they'd begged for $2,000 for emergency medical bills for Sophia. My hands shook. This wasn't a cash flow problem. This was a lie. A betrayal so sharp it cut deeper than Robert's death. I didn't confront them right away. I couldn't. The pain was too raw, the disbelief too heavy. Instead, I called a friend from my book club, Margaret, who'd mentioned her nephew was a lawyer. She gave me Patricia Evans' number, an estate attorney in Milwaukee known for protecting seniors. I met Patricia the next day in her sleek office, all polished wood and law degrees on the wall. She was younger than I expected, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense tone. "Eleanor, tell me everything," she said, pen poised over a legal pad. I poured it all out: the $42,000, the Instagram posts, the lies about mortgages and medical bills. By the time I finished, Patricia's jaw was tight. "Mrs. Thompson, this isn't just bad behavior. This is elder financial abuse. Your son and daughter-in-law are exploiting your grief and your love to fund a lifestyle they can't afford." Her words hit like a slap. Elder financial abuse. My own son, James, who I'd raised to be honest, to work hard, was stealing from me. "They're my family," I stammered. "Family doesn't lie to get $42,000 while you're grieving your husband," Patricia shot back. "You've got options, Eleanor. We can document everything: bank transfers, social media posts, text messages. We can cut off their access to your money. And if you want, we can pursue legal action." Legal action against my own son? The thought made my stomach churn. But as I sat there, staring at the cold truth in Patricia's eyes, I knew something had to change. I wasn't ready to face James and Laura yet, but the seeds of betrayal were planted, and they were about to grow into something far more devastating. The realization that my son James and his wife Laura had been bleeding me dry with their lies: $42,000 for fake emergencies while they sipped champagne in Miami, was a knife to the heart. But I wasn't prepared for the blow that came next, the one that drove the blade deeper and twisted it until I thought I'd break. It was early November, a gray, chilly evening in my Milwaukee apartment, and I was still reeling from my meeting with Patricia Evans, the lawyer who'd labeled their actions as elder financial abuse. I sat on my secondhand couch, staring at the bank statements that documented every transfer to James, each one a betrayal. My phone rang, shattering the silence. It was James, his voice low and hesitant, not the confident tone I'd grown used to. "Mom, I need to tell you something. Please don't get mad." My stomach dropped. Those words never led anywhere good. "What is it, James?" I asked, bracing myself. He took a deep breath. "When we told you to sell the house, it wasn't just about safety. We needed the money. Laura and I took out a second mortgage on your Chicago house last year, $50,000. We used your signature. We thought we'd pay it off before you noticed, so you wouldn't be stressed after Dad died." The room spun. I gripped the armrest, my knuckles white. "You forged my signature?" I whispered, my voice trembling with a mix of disbelief and rage. "You stole from me while I was grieving Robert?" James stammered. "It wasn't stealing, Mom. We were desperate. Laura's business was tanking, and my commissions weren't coming through. We didn't want to lose our house." I stood up, pacing the 10-foot length of my tiny living room, my heart pounding. "Desperate? You took $50,000 from your own mother's home, James, the home where you grew up, Where your father and I built our life. And you didn't think to tell me? My voice cracked, tears burning my eyes. Mom, we were going to fix it, he pleaded. We just needed a little time. Laura's voice cut in, she'd been on speaker. Eleanor, we didn't want to burden you. You were so fragile after Robert passed. Fragile. The word stung like a slap. They hadn't seen me as their mother. They'd seen me as a mark, a weak-old woman they could manipulate. I sank back onto the couch, the weight of their betrayal crushing me. That $50,000 second mortgage explained why the sale of my Chicago home, which should have netted $500,000, only brought in $450,000 after closing. They'd siphoned off a chunk of my life savings, the nest egg Robert and I had scrimped for, dreaming of road trips across Route 66 our retirement. How could you do this to me? I asked. My voice barely audible. To your father's memory? There was a long pause, then Laura's voice, colder now. We did what we had to do, Eleanor. You had plenty of money. What's $50,000 when you're sitting on a fortune? The callousness in her tone was a punch to the gut. I hung up, my hands shaking so badly I could barely press the button. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark, staring at a photo of Robert and me on our 40th anniversary, laughing at a diner in Chicago, ketchup on his chin. He'd worked overtime for years at the auto plant to pay off our house early, to give us security. Now, that security was tainted, stolen by our own son. The pain was unbearable, not just the money, but the trust. James, the boy who'd once brought me dandelions from the backyard, had forged my name. Laura, who I'd welcomed like a daughter, had justified it without a hint of shame. I felt like I'd lost Robert all over again, and now my son too. My apartment's gray walls closed in, mocking me with their emptiness. But something shifted in that darkness. The grief and rage began to harden into resolve. I wasn't just a grieving widow or a frail old lady. I was Eleanor Thompson, and I'd survived worse than this. James and Laura thought they could break me, but they'd underestimated me. The next morning, I called Patricia Evans again. I want to know my options, I said, my voice steady for the first time in weeks. Everything they've done, every lie, every dollar, I want it documented. Patricia didn't hesitate. Good, Eleanor. Let's start building your case. I wasn't sure what came next, but I knew one thing. James and Laura were about to learn that betraying me came with a price they couldn't afford. The sting of James and Laura's betrayal, $42,000 siphoned from my savings, and a $50,000 second mortgage forged in my name, cut deeper than any loss I'd felt since Robert's death. Sitting in my 800-square-foot Milwaukee apartment, surrounded by gray walls that mocked my grief, I realized I wasn't just a victim of their lies. I was Eleanor Thompson, a woman who'd raised 2 kids, survived decades of hard work beside Robert, and wasn't about to let my own son and his wife treat me like a cash machine. The pain of their deception had hardened into a fire in my chest, and I was done being their pawn. It was time to fight back, but I had to be smart, calculated, like they'd been with me. I wasn't going to confront them yet. No, I'd build a case so airtight they'd choke on their own lies. The morning after James admitted to forging my signature, I called Patricia Evans, my lawyer, before the sun even rose over Milwaukee. I'm ready, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my heart. I want every lie documented, every dollar traced. They don't get to walk away from this. Patricia's tone was all business. Good, Eleanor. First, we secure your finances. Then we gather evidence. Meet me at my office at 9 a.m. I drove the 5 miles to her downtown office, my hands gripping the wheel of my old Honda Civic, the one Robert and I had bought 15 years ago. Patricia greeted me with a firm handshake and a stack of folders. Step 1, she said. New bank accounts. They can't touch what they can't access. By noon, I'd opened accounts at a different bank, transferring my remaining $600. 000. life insurance and house sale proceeds out of the joint account. James had somehow gotten his name on years ago. How did I miss this? I muttered, signing the paperwork. Grief blinds us, Patricia said gently. But you're seeing clearly now. Next, Patricia recommended a private investigator, a guy named Tom Bradley, a retired cop with a reputation for digging up dirt. I met Tom at a coffee shop near Lake Michigan, 2 miles from my apartment. He was in his late 52nd, gruff but kind, with a notepad and a no-nonsense stare. "Tell me what they've done," he said, sipping black coffee. I laid it all out: the $42,000 for fake emergencies, the Instagram posts of their lavish Florida trips, the forged $50,000 mortgage. Tom scribbled notes, his jaw tightening. "I've seen this before, Mrs. Thompson. Kids bleeding their parents dry, thinking they're entitled. I'll get you proof: credit card statements, receipts, social media screenshots. Give me a week." I nodded, my heart pounding. "Make it quick, Tom. Thanksgiving is coming, and I want to be ready." While Tom worked, I dug through my own records. Sitting at my tiny kitchen table under a flickering fluorescent light, I printed every bank transfer to James and Laura: $4,000 here, $5,000 there, $2,000 for Sophia's school fees. I found text messages from Laura, her words dripping with fake desperation. "Eleanor, we're so sorry to ask again, but the roof needs repairs: $3,000. Can you help?" I cross-checked their Instagram posts, saved screenshots of James posing with a $1,500 golf bag, Laura in a $700 dress at a steakhouse in Madison. Each click fueled my anger, but it also sharpened my resolve. I wasn't just fighting for my money, I was fighting for the life Robert and I had built, the security they'd tried to steal. Patricia called me 3 days later. "Tom's got something," she said. "Meet us tomorrow." At her office, Tom spread out a folder thick with evidence. Receipts from a $2,000 spa day in Florida, plane tickets to Miami costing $1,200 each, even a $10,000 deposit on a boat rental, all paid while they claimed they couldn't afford Sophia's $500 SAT prep course. The kicker? A bank statement showing they'd used my $50,000 mortgage to pay off their own credit card debt, not their house. "This is fraud, Eleanor," Patricia said, her voice sharp. "We can file a complaint with the Wisconsin Attorney General for elder financial abuse and pursue a separate claim for the forged mortgage." I swallowed hard. "Will they go to jail?" Patricia leaned back. "Maybe. But first we hit them where it hurts their wallet and their pride." I spent the next few days preparing. My apartment a war room of bank statements and legal forms. I bought a safe deposit box at my new bank, locking away my important documents: Robert's will, my account details, the deed to our old Chicago home. I even called my daughter Anna in Portland, Oregon to tell her what was happening. "Mom, I had no idea James was this low," she said, her voice thick with shock. "Come stay with us after this is over. You don't have to face this alone." Her words were a lifeline, but I wasn't ready to run yet. Thanksgiving was a week away, and James and Laura were expecting me at their Madison home, probably thinking I'd hand over another check. They had no idea I was coming with something else, a reckoning they'd never forget. Thanksgiving Day arrived like a storm cloud over Madison, Wisconsin, cold and heavy, mirroring the weight in my chest. I'd spent the past week with my lawyer Patricia Evans and private investigator Tom Bradley, arming myself with evidence of James and Laura's betrayal. $42,000 drained from my savings for their lies, a $50,000 forged mortgage on my Chicago home, and a paper trail of their lavish spending: spa days, jet skis, $80 steaks while they begged for my help. I drove the 80 miles from Milwaukee to their 4,000 square foot colonial, gripping the wheel of my old Honda Civic, a manila envelope on the passenger seat. Inside it were bank statements, Tom's investigator report, and a complaint draft for elder financial abuse, ready to shatter their world as they'd shattered mine. I wasn't just Eleanor Thompson, the grieving widow, anymore. I was a mother done being played. I stepped into their house, the air thick with the smell of roasted turkey and deceit. Sophia, my 7-year-old granddaughter, ran to me, her hug warm and genuine. "Nana, you brought your pecan pie," she said, her smile bright. James greeted me with a forced grin, his eyes darting to Laura, who offered a too sweet, "Eleanor, you look radiant." Their warmth felt like a performance, a prelude to another ask. We sat at their polished dining table, set with crystal glasses and a centerpiece that screamed money they didn't have. Conversation danced around safe topics: Sophia's college applications, the Packers' latest game, while I waited, my envelope burning a hole in my purse. After dessert, James cleared his throat, exchanging a glance with Laura. Here it was. "Mom," he began, his voice measured. "We need to talk about the house. The bank's given us a deadline Monday. If we don't pay $30,000 to catch up on the mortgage, we lose everything." Laura leaned in, her eyes glistening with practiced tears. "It's for Sophia, Eleanor. She's in her junior year. We can't uproot her now." I folded my napkin, my heart pounding but my voice calm. $30,000? That's a lot, James. Haven't I already given you $42,000? The table went silent. Laura's smile faltered. "That was for other things," she said quickly. "This is different." I leaned back, staring them down. "Is it? Because I'm not sure I can afford it after you forged a $50,000 mortgage on my house." Sophia gasped, her fork clattering to her plate. "Dad, what's she talking about?" James's face turned ashen. "Mom, that's not fair," he stammered. "Not fair?" I snapped, my voice rising. "You stole from me while I was burying your father." Laura jumped in, her tone sharp. "Eleanor, we were desperate. You had plenty to spare." That was the final straw. I reached into my purse, pulled out the manila envelope, and slammed it on the table. "Open it," I said, my voice cold as steel. "Your lies end today." James hesitated, his hands trembling as he opened the envelope. He pulled out the stack of documents, bank transfers totaling $42,000, screenshots of their Instagram posts boasting Miami vacations and designer clothes. Tom's report detailing $10,000 boat rentals and $2,000 spa days, and the draft complaint to the Wisconsin Attorney General for elder financial abuse and mortgage fraud. Laura's eyes widened, her breath catching. "What is this?" she whispered. "Proof," I said, standing up. "You took $92,000 from me, $42,000 in transfers and a $50,000 forged mortgage while lying about your struggles. You spent my money on luxuries while Sophia thought I couldn't afford her college applications." Sophia turned to her parents, tears streaming down her face. "Dad, is this true? You lied to Nana?" James opened his mouth, but no words came. Laura's voice shook. "Sophia, it's complicated." I laughed, a bitter, jagged sound. "Complicated? It's fraud." Then James played his final card. "If you can't help us, Mom, you're no longer part of this family." The words hung like poison in the air. Sophia sobbed, covering her face. I looked at James, the boy I'd raised, now a stranger. "You think you can scare me into writing another check?" I said, my voice steady. "You're about to learn what happens when you betray the wrong mother." I grabbed my coat, leaving the envelope on the table. As I walked to the door, Sophia's voice stopped me. "Nana, don't go." My heart broke, but I turned back. "I'm not leaving you, sweetheart. But your parents need to face what they've done." I stepped into the cold Wisconsin night, my resolve ironclad. James and Laura thought they'd broken me, but they were wrong. The real storm was coming, and they'd feel its full force soon enough. The Thanksgiving confrontation in James and Laura's Madison home left me shaking as I drove the 80 miles back to my Milwaukee apartment, the manila envelope's contents proof of their $42,000 theft and $50,000 forged mortgage still burning in my mind. I'd laid their lies bare, watched Sophia's face crumple as she learned her parents' deceit, and walked away from James's venomous threat to cut me out of the family. But the storm wasn't over. The real consequences were about to hit, and they'd tear James and Laura's carefully curated world apart, leaving scars I hadn't anticipated, even in my anger. 2 days after Thanksgiving, my phone lit up at 7 a.m. It was Laura, her voice shrill and desperate. "Eleanor, you've destroyed us!" she screamed. "The bank's investigating the mortgage fraud because of your complaint. They're freezing our accounts." I stood in my tiny kitchen, clutching my coffee mug, the one Robert and I had bought at a Wisconsin flea market years ago. "You destroyed yourselves, Laura," I said, my voice cold but steady. "You forged my signature and stole $92,000. Did you think I'd just let that go?" She sobbed, her words tumbling out. "We're losing the house, Eleanor. The bank's starting foreclosure. Where will Sophia live? You're punishing her, too." The mention of Sophia stung, but I wouldn't waver. "You used Sophia as an excuse to bleed me dry," I shot back. "Don't hide behind her now." By Monday, Patricia Evans, my lawyer, confirmed the bank's actions. "The Wisconsin Attorney General's office is reviewing your complaint," she said, her voice calm over the phone. "The forged mortgage is serious $50,000 in fraud. James and Laura could face criminal charges if the bank presses it." My heart sank, not for them, but for Sophia. At 17, she didn't deserve to be caught in this wreckage. That evening, Sophia called, her voice trembling. "Nana, I'm moving out," she said. "I'm staying with my friend Emily's family. I can't even look at Mom and Dad right now." I gripped the phone, tears pricking my eyes. "Why, sweetheart?" I asked, though I feared the answer. "They lied to you, Nana. They told me you couldn't afford my college applications because you were broke. But Dad just bought a $2,000 watch. I checked online. I can't trust them anymore." Her words broke my heart, but they also steeled my resolve. James and Laura's lies hadn't just hurt me, they'd shattered their daughter's faith in them. The next blow came a week later. Patricia met me at her office, 5 miles from my apartment, and laid out a letter from the bank. James and Laura defaulted on their own mortgage, $35,000 in arrears, she said, sliding the document across her desk. "Your $42,000 in transfers kept them afloat temporarily, but the $50,000 they forged from your Chicago home went to pay off gambling debts, not their house." "Gambling debts?" My jaw dropped. "James has been betting on sports," Patricia explained, her voice grim. "Tom Bradley, your investigator, found $20,000 in online betting transactions over the past year." I sat back, stunned. The man who'd once saved his allowance to buy me a Mother's Day necklace was gambling away my life savings. "What happens now?" I asked. "They'll lose their house within 30 days, Patricia said. "And the fraud investigation could lead to jail time unless they cooperate fully." Laura called again that night, her tone a mix of rage and panic. "Eleanor, you've ruined everything. Sophia won't talk to us. The bank's taking our home. You're tearing this family apart." I stood on my apartment's small balcony, the Milwaukee skyline blurring through my tears. "You tore this family apart when you forged my signature, Laura," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "You used my grief to steal $92,000, then blamed me when it fell apart. Sophia deserves better than parents who lie to her face." Laura's voice broke. "We didn't mean for it to go this far." I hung up, my hands trembling. Their 4,000 square foot colonial, their perfect facade, was crumbling, and Sophia's decision to leave was the final crack in their foundation. As I sat in the dark, staring at a photo of Robert and me at Lake Michigan, I felt a strange mix of vindication and sorrow. James and Laura's world was collapsing, just as they'd collapsed mine. But Sophia's pain, her loss of trust, weighed on me. I'd protected myself, but at what cost to her? The fight wasn't over. Patricia was preparing a settlement offer restitution for my $92,000, no jail time if they complied. Thanksgiving had been the first strike, but the real battle was coming, and I'd face it with every ounce of strength I had left. 6 months after that shattering Thanksgiving in Madison, I'm telling this story from a new apartment in Portland, Oregon, 1,700 miles from the gray prison of Milwaukee. My 1,200 square foot home overlooks Mount Hood. Its snow-capped peak a quiet reminder that life can still be beautiful after betrayal. I moved here to be near my daughter Anna, who welcomed me with open arms when I told her how James and Laura stole $92,000, $42,000 in transfers, and a $50,000 forged mortgage on my Chicago home. Anna's voice was fierce over the phone. "Mom, you don't deserve this. Come to Portland. We'll start fresh." And so I did, packing my quilts and Robert's old radio, leaving behind the pain of James's lies. My new life here is small but full. I'm teaching Anna's daughter, Lily, to knit the scarf pattern Robert loved. It's soft blue yarn looping through my fingers as we laugh in my cozy kitchen. I've joined a book club at the local library, 2 miles from my apartment, where I swap stories with folks who face their own battles. At 70, I even tried hiking in Forest Park, stumbling but smiling with Lily cheering me on. "You're tougher than you look, Nana," she giggled. Those moments, simple and warm, are my victory, a life reclaimed from the ashes of betrayal. Sophia, my granddaughter, sent me a letter last month. At 17, she's thriving at her new school in Madison, working part-time at a coffee shop to save for college. "Nana," she wrote, "you taught me to stand up for myself. I got a partial scholarship to UW-Madison, and I'm learning to earn what I want, not expect handouts." Her words made me cry, not from pain, but pride. She mentioned James and Laura are paying back the $92,000, $900 a month, a 4-year commitment that's forced them into a modest apartment. They've joined Gamblers Anonymous after Tom Bradley's investigation uncovered James's $20,000 sports betting losses, the root of their financial spiral. They're working now, James at a car dealership, Laura freelancing again, living within their means, rebuilding their credit. Sophia's talking to them again, but it's different, cautious. Some bridges can't be fully rebuilt, only patched. I miss Robert every day. His absence is a quiet ache, but I don't feel guilty for finding joy without him. I've learned hard lessons from this ordeal. First, set boundaries even with family. Love doesn't mean enabling lies or theft. Second, protect your finances, keep records, check accounts, and don't be afraid to seek legal help. Third, it's never too late to start over, to choose yourself, no matter your age. Robert used to say, "The hardest part of love is knowing when to let go." At 70, I finally understand. I let James and Laura face their consequences, not to punish them, but to save myself and maybe, in time, to save them from themselves. If my story touched you, please like this video and share your own story in the comments on the Unwanted Revenge. Your voice matters, and I'd love to hear how you've faced betrayal or found strength. Subscribe to join me in uncovering truths that need to be told. Thank you for listening.